Good morning, this is Robert with Pioneer Smokehouses, and today I'm up bright and early this morning cooking with my Cuisinart COS-118 18-inch vertical smoker. What we'll be cooking today is a large chuck roast, and I'll be using the WARPIG seasoning. I want to give it a really good try, and I put it on pretty good. So first of all, I'm going to go ahead and run a little bit of B-roll, and then you can see exactly what I was doing with the chuck roast and how I coated it. I always trim, then I do the edges lightly, and then I do the top and the bottom. Now, you can go a little bit heavier on the edges if you like, and you can also go heavier on the top and the bottom. If you're gonna go heavier, you're probably gonna need some form of binder, and my preferred binder is actually spray olive oil because it doesn't give much flavor at all. It goes on really light, and the oil on the outside actually helps keep the roast a little moister, and that's kind of one thing I like. Also, an added benefit is it prevents it from sticking. So I preheated this smoker. I needed to run it a little while to get it a little cleaned up. So that means that by running it a while, I'm actually burning up a couple of hours of fuel. And also, one of the other problems that I have is I actually went over the target temperature. So I've been fighting to get that temperature back down, and I've closed the vents down, and the top vent here is down to the minimum that I can run it on with the probe in there. And I'll try to pop a picture of that up there. And then the bottom, I actually have it closed all the way, but the thing is that there's enough air leakage that it actually never completely closes. Now we can take a look in here, and we can see that the fire is burning really well. And I did a small burn in with about 16 or 18 charcoals, and then I removed them, filled the basket, and then put them back in a lighting position, which is right by the front door for what I do. So I like to put it in and kind of use a little bit of a minion method. Now what I'll do is after it burns away, I'll add a little bit more charcoal briquettes and a few pieces of lump charcoal. The lump charcoal actually run a little hotter. Now there is lump in there. I mixed it. I put a couple of big pieces in the very back, and then I mixed in some of the small pieces throughout the front, and then filled it with the rest of the briquettes again. Now, we are at a temperature of about 300, which is a little high. I have been complaining in a previous video about the thermometer, and my probe thermometer is showing slightly over 300, and the thermometer on the top is showing 200. So I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that this thermometer is pretty much worthless. I will, at some point, go ahead and install a second thermometer directly above that. And the key thing is make sure you don't over drill the hole, so that way if you wanna plug that hole later, it's just a simple bolt through there and the hole will be completely plugged in. But I would like to get it somewhere up in here, or maybe even down here where I can get a little closer to the cooking level. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna pop this in here, and you saw the B-roll. This is what we have. It's all seasoned up and ready to go and already on a grill mat. So I'll just be able to set it right in there. I'm gonna be careful because we have the wire in here. Pick that off. Now when I did my trimmings, I always save all the trimmings, but I took this nice little piece right here and left it right in there. When you're in the middle of the cook, you can definitely add a little bit more seasoning. What I recommend doing is either incorporating seasoning in some sort of a basting sauce, or else give it a light spray again with the olive oil and then sprinkle a little bit more seasoning on the top. That'll add another layer of the same seasoning to your meat and then allow it to have some time to get a little crisped up, but also it will actually have a slightly different flavor. Almost, if I explain it, a little fresher, the seasoning won't be as smoked in or charred kind of. Now we're gonna go ahead and watch this and see what the temperature does. I really want to lean on this right around 275. With something like a brisket, I will run it in 3 steps. I'll go 225 and then 250 and then at the stall, and then 275 during the final hour just to get it re-crisped up, because at the stall I tend to wrap this, and we will consider wrapping this depending on how the bark looks, but I'm going to try to avoid that if I can. This should be a long cook. It should take about 8 to 10 hours. Our main goal is to get it to brisket consistency, and again, we're running a little bit higher. I did not inject it. If you go much above 275, I would recommend that you probably inject your roast, and then that way it will have a lot of moisture inside to help fight that urge to dry out. Now, I'm gonna just babysit this for a while, and really we just wanna test and see how well this performs. And we're also testing that WARPIG on a good piece of beef that we can really get an idea of how well we like the flavor. So far I've really liked the WARPIG on the steaks and the other things that I've used it on, and we're hoping for the same results. So I'll keep a close eye on the temperature here, and we'll be back in a few seconds for you, probably about 4 to 6 hours for me, when I need to make a change with the chuck roast or with the fire, whichever comes first. All right, so I'll see you then. It has been roughly 5 hours, and we have actually burned up the entire first load of charcoal, and I've had to add charcoal, both briquettes and a few pieces of lump to it, and I just finished doing that. And let's take a look in here. So I don't think you're really going to be able to see that too well, so I'll pop a picture of it right here, and I'll go ahead and put the lid back on. Now, I have the probe in here pointing down, and I was able to get the temperature down once the charcoal burned down to a manageable level. I got the temperature running right around 250. Right this second it's at 243, but it's bumping back up just a little bit, but we're gonna ruin that good anyway. So next I'm gonna show you a picture here. I just took the lid off right before I started the camera and took this picture, and you can see that that chuck roast is all rendered out. I'm gonna go ahead and open the lid and we can get a closer look at it. I just have that probe sitting right here with a rock to kind of keep it down so it's not up too high. And then in that picture you can see that there's a lot of pooling there of the fat, which is great because there's a lot of fat in a chuck roast, and we wanted those ribbons to render out, and that's what you're seeing there. So now I'm going to go ahead and separate it a little bit from the grill mat, and then I'm going to flip it. The reason I flip it is because I want that fat to not be pulled up on there, and then that'll give it a chance for the bark to dry up a bit. Now, this is my favorite instant read thermometer. This is one of the standard ThermoPro, very inexpensive. I can't quote an exact price because of Amazon rules, but check the price down below. It's a must-have, and this is the third one I just bought. I gave one away, and then I lost the last one. I'm sure it's somewhere around here, but who knows where. So now I'm gonna go ahead and stick it in here and get a temperature here. Oh, that is beautiful. And we're showing 155.5, and it's not too dry at all. So I'm thinking I'm not ready to wrap it if I do wrap it. And then we're gonna go ahead and pull that back out. I'm trying to do this without disturbing as much of the crust as possible. And now I'm gonna see if I can get a little tiny piece off the edge. Should have brought a knife out with me, but I didn't. Got a little piece here. There's a rock back there holding up that probe, so I want to be very careful not to disturb it. I'm going to show you this really close here. And you can see all that wonderful color from the smoke in there. And that's just the reaction from the gases and the myoglobin. So it's very pretty. but as far as taste goes, I don't think it makes a lot of difference. Now, taking a little piece off the end like this is going to be kind of heavy on the spice, but man, that is wonderful. So I threw a little strip on there before we started when we first put the whole chuck roast on there from one of the nicer trimmings. And I already ate that a while ago. I did notice that it seemed to touch on the salty side, but this piece that I just had does not seem like it's too salty at all, even though there's a lot of spices on those corners. So maybe it's possible that I overspiced that sample piece, and then on that corner, it's a little less spicy than on the top or the bottom. So when we get to a bigger bite, that salt level seems to be balancing out well. Well, we're gonna go ahead and make sure that we get this to recover its temperature, and then I'll sit here and watch this, and that'll probably be about 4 more hours for me and probably 1 second for you. We have gone through about 3 more hours and the temperature has gone up and down. So it's been a kind of a bumpy ride a little bit, and I think what it is that I need to be able to put more charcoal in here and burn it a little bit slower. So on my next cook, I'll kind of try to work on that a little bit. So next thing we're gonna do is we've developed quite the bark. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull it off. I did temp check it and we were right around 180. So we still have a little ways to go, but not too long. So let's go ahead and take this off. And here's a picture of that right there. We've lost a lot in size here. And you can see how dark that is. Now I'm gonna go ahead and pull that off, but before I wrap it, I'm just gonna try to break off a little piece of the corner here. And again, I'll show you that. That's the same spot I ripped off a piece earlier. And look how nice and red that is. That is tasty. Just like a brisket, I'm gonna wrap it over like that. Go ahead and take it and flip it. Make sure it's completely sealed up. And then fold the ends in. Once I get the ends folded in, I'm gonna just fold them back over to make sure they get a little seal on there. Might work, might not work, but it's all good. Set this back on there and get the lid back on. Now, like I was just saying a minute ago, I've had to reload this, I think the 3rd time now. And when I say reload, I mean I'm only putting in about 16 briquettes and 1 piece of lump charcoal on top of that bed, and kind of just running it around more like a snake than a big roaring fire. I think that the snake actually works a little better. Now, I have a small can that I was using for my small smoke with snakes, but I'm gonna need to upsize this to something a lot taller and be able to fill that basket up completely, so that way I can get a good charcoal snake going to get a really good cook. So on the next cook, we're definitely gonna work on something like that, and I'm sure that we're gonna head right into a nice big pork roast, or pork shoulder that is, and see how that'll work. Now this is, right now it's at 220 and climbing, and 221, but it was holding at 250 right before I turned the camera on, and that's really, we want to be at 250 to 275 at this point in the cook, we need to make sure that we stay a little bit higher in the temperature because we want to get that up there so that way we can get this to get up into the 193, 195 range and then still have time for a rest. So I'm going to work on this for the next 15, 20 minutes to get that temperature all the way up there and to see if I can get it to hold for at least the next hour, which should finish it off. So I will be back in 1 second for you, but probably a little more than an hour for me. We are back and it's been about an hour. Something that I forgot was that I wanted to put the meat probe inside and I had to wash it first, so it was a back and forth kind of thing, so I didn't really turn the camera on for that. I got it cleaned up and then I stuck it in there. I don't know if I got it exactly right. I think I went just a little too deep. So the reading is a little higher than what I expected it to be, but we are in the done range, just slightly over 200 degrees. So let's go ahead and get that off of there. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and remove the one that I've been using for ambient. Set that down there, and my clever device to hold it still, a rock. Don't do that at home. So open that up. So what I did is that I snaked this through the vent hole and then I put it in here like this to get the temperature reading, and still about the same, actually a couple more degrees more now than like 202. But the idea is that I got it through the hole without creating a new hole in the thing. But you could always drill a hole and buy a grommet for another smoker and run it through. I would probably say right about here, because this would be a really good location to have it, to be out of your way. Go ahead and take this off. I'll take a minute to show you this really quick. Most of the mess for the entire smoke is right there. There's a little bit of oil down in the water pan there, and I'll just dump that before it solidifies, and everything else is good to go in here. So I'm going to go ahead and open that up. When I open it, I'm going to deliberately try to keep as much of the juice in there as I can. And there it is. 1 second, I got to grab a picture. I'm going to go ahead and transfer it to the cutting board and then move this to the side. You can just see how soft it is. That means that we went across that temperature and it broke down. I brought out my brisket slicing knife because this really is the best knife to slice with. And I'm kind of going to go at a slight angle here. It's going to be pretty soft. Oh, it's perfect. So you can see that. I'll hold that out to the camera there. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to set that to the side. And I'm going to pull this apart so that way you can get a look inside. Look at that smoke ring. That is beautiful and it looks really good. So let's go ahead and get a taste right out of the middle here. First, just squeeze. A little hot. I think maybe I should use a fork. I'm going to go ahead and put these back in here. Get that wrapped in there as best as we can. Fold this back just a little bit to cover that hole. Curved over there. Curved over there, and I think that should keep it nice and wrapped so we can get a good rest. We're going to rest that for about 30 minutes or more. And if you go for, say, an hour, it should be fine. If you're going to do any more than that, you're going to want to wrap it in a towel, throw it in a cooler, or throw it in your oven with it completely cool and off. So here we go. I can just go right through that. I don't have to cut it down any. It just comes right apart. I'm going to show you here. Flip it over. So that right there pulled perfectly. When I pull chuck roast, I like to cross cut it kind of thick, and then I just pull it apart with the forks, and that worked exactly the way I like it to. And this here is the side piece, and this is going to be really good with the extra bark there. So let's eat it this way. That is a good dry rub. I really like that rub. Now, there's one that I've done in some videos before. It's called Wet and Wild, and it has a real tomatoey taste to it. That would complement this flavor. That addition of a tomatoey taste would really benefit this dry rub. And I'm really sensitive to salt, and we got no problem here with that. So like I said, as soon as this thing cools down a little bit, I'll go ahead and dump the oil out of the water pan, and I'll throw the grill mat in the dishwasher, and the grill grate, I'll just take it to the propane grill and burn it off a little bit, and it'll be all ready for the next use. You want to make sure that after you're done, that you make sure that you run it just a little bit longer, and there's still a good hour's charcoal in there. That way it gets all the humidity out of there, so that way you don't get any mildew, must, or any mold growing in there. During the winter, when I leave my stuff outside, we live right on the creek, so mold grows a lot. So that should wrap up everything I have to say for today's cook. And it was a lot of up and downs with the temperature, but this thing cooked great, and I'm interested in getting a good full-size pork shoulder to see how it compares to the Weber. And we might actually in the future do a side-by-side cook, but that's going to be something that I can't have errands or anything I need to do in between, because with two smokers you got to pay a lot of attention. So if you saw anything you like this budget-friendly Cuisinart COS-118 18-inch vertical charcoal smoker, that's a mouthful, check the link down below. Now, even if you're not interested in buying it, check the price on it. That really helps out the channel. So also there'll be some articles, including the review for this, to my website. That link will be the first in the description. So again, thanks for watching and have a great day.